Council workshop meeting Monday, August 5th, 2019, 6 p.m. Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Overmark.
Present.
Patke.
Here.
Pettit.
Here.
Scornia. Sullentrup. Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will all the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated July 1, 2019? Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Obermark.
Aye.
Patke.
Yes.
Pettit.
I have not.
Sullentrup. Wessels.
Yes.
I know.
Having read the minutes, are there any corrections or comments?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Obermark, to approve the minutes from our last council workshop meeting dated July 1, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Report of department heads. Library budget amendment.
You've got a letter from me. The Washington Library Board has requested to go ahead and transfer $7,500 from the Development Fund to the Technical Services Fund. I believe somebody from, you want to come on up and tell them what we're doing over there? Sure. Give them an idea.
John Lober with NOC Technology. We're working towards virtualizing the entire public computer system at the
Speaking
library.
to the microphone.
Pull that mic down in front
Is that a
of
little better?
That's
There you
better.
go.
There you go.
Okay. So we're working towards virtualizing the entire public computer system over there. We're putting it in our cloud environment and using some city-donated thin clients to kind of complete that task and make sure that their computer system is aging out, and this was the most cost-effective method of making that happen. So this 7,500 is kind of the development portion of it for licensing and all of that needed steps to make that happen.
Okay. Any questions of John?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Make a motion, pass it on. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Patke, to send the budget amendment on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the idea of passing it on. Thank you.
Public Works discussion on recycling.
John?
Good evening, Council. So as you are aware, we've been working for the past couple of years on trying to figure out a way to make recycling a little more efficient, maybe try to increase some of the services to the citizens or the users of recycling. As you're aware, right now we do curbside recycling. It's a sorting operation at the curb, which gives us a high-quality product, but it's very labor-intensive. The recycling market took a nosedive towards the end of last year. I don't know if anyone remembers, but we were looking at actually purchasing a single-stream recycling truck that luckily we were able to cancel the purchase on when the market took a dive. So recycling is definitely became an operation that is very costly to not just say Washington, but just the entire market. So I sent you all or emailed you all just a summary that we had just to make you aware kind of what's going on. Kind of what I gathered is not really everyone really understood kind of how the recycling market has it. One thing I hear a lot of is, well, recycling makes you money. That's a false, definitely a false thing to say. So within that, we run probably an average deficit when you take revenues, expenditures, approximately $200,000. The majority of the revenues come from, there's a $2.50 surcharge for every ton of trash that gets dumped at the landfill. So it's technically really a $77.50 tipping rate with a $2.50 on top of it, which makes it $80 in total. Okay, that's really where the revenues really come from. The past 5 years, we've received approximately, on average, $50,000 a year just in revenue from the recycling. So Tony, the recycling department, street department, they take all the recyclables that you get curbside, to put it in a truck, take it to the recycling center, and they bale it. Okay, so there's a baler there that takes care of all that. So Tony and I were discussing, what does this look like in the next 5 years, thinking of what we can do to make it more efficient. The recycling center is going to need some work on the actual asphalt itself, $30,000 worth of asphalt work potentially. I don't know if anybody's been there. It's potholes and things like that. It's met its lifespan. We also had an insurance claim with a storm that came through, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago maybe, that blew the roof off. There's not enough money in the account from the insurance claim to cover the roof to get put back on. So that's why we have not done it yet, pending this discussion. In addition, the next 5 years look like needs a compactor and then another truck just to replace one in the fleet. So we're looking at a pretty substantial capital improvement cost. That's pushing $160,000 to $175,000 maybe in the next 3 to 5 years on a deficit spending process. So all that we did was think outside the box. What can we do? So we started looking into just getting on the phone with some other communities. I know in the paper actually, or in the Missouri, and I think Union had a discussion regarding recycling over the weekend as well. But looking, what could we do? So I contacted one of there's a couple sorting facilities left. One's Republic Services in St. Louis. I think Union and Republic Services New Haven. I think Waste Connection Services Union right now. So there are a couple options here. But one idea would be is that we would look into contracting it. Just float the idea. What's it going to cost us? Could we increase the service while keeping the cost the same to the citizens, which is nothing? So in that review that I gave you all, it's interesting because as you approach 100% in, it actually starts costing more money. There's once you get to about 50%, you're actually breaking even on what your deficit spending is now, okay? So a couple things you could look at is right now we do weekly collections with the small green bins. You could look at requiring to do a larger canister with a lid that maybe you could go to every other week collection. I know New Haven does every month collection. Really the big thing here is getting cardboard collected curbside. Cardboard cannot be collected curbside now. I haven't really thought if we could even do it because it would actually take another truck because you're loading all that cardboard essentially on a dump truck, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the collection of that cardboard is vitally important because every resident that does not go to the recycling center to take their cardboard there, where does it end up? It ends up in the trash stream, which then goes to our landfill via our refuse collection. Another thing to note is the city gets a lot of revenue at the landfill operation from the outside community. City residents put in about 20% of the trash into the landfill. So anytime that you can offset that, it actually makes the life of the landfill go much longer, which makes perfect sense. So all that I'm really doing today is just trying to open the discussion up and let everyone know kind of what's going on in recycling, what we're trying to do to, like I said, increase the service while leave the cost the same. Now, if we can meet that goal, I can't tell you standing here. We did get some verbal, cost numbers, but I put together a proposal essentially that we would go out to bid or get a request for proposal to see what it would cost to do every other week collection and do some of these things. It does not mean that we would be locked into any proposal. It just means that we could more intelligently have the conversation. We have a solid waste liaison or subcommittee, whatever we want to call it, that met 3 weeks ago to talk about this. Part of that was also to look at trash as kind of an alternate of contracting trash. Once again, that does not mean we're going to do it. Trash is much more difficult. The key here is level of service being at the same, if not better. So trash is much more difficult. Where I think recycling, I think the potential's there. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy. This is a very, very loaded discussion, so I just kind of want to kick it off.
So we know we wanted to go ahead and take some time with that. We'll have a little bit of time for the other department heads, but mainly we wanted to go ahead and have a discussion and see if, at the end of that, if you were still willing for us to at least go out for proposals for this. And so like John said, we can come back to you and give you at least something to think about. Right now, this is what he's got verbally, and he's put a lot of effort into trying to figure out a way to help us with our budget on this, and we're like a lot of other cities. We had an article, I think Mark had shared with him about Farmington that dropped it just a couple weeks ago, you know, and so that's something that we're seeing. If we want to still keep this, we need to go ahead and figure out a way to make it a little bit more viable.
I know we use the recycling extensively. I mean, right now, like our tub's full every week, so a larger container. I'm not big on the 2-week deal. I mean, it's hard enough for me to remember on Monday mornings, so I hate to try to remember every other week. But
Right. And the reason to go to 2 week was, like, again, to limit that cost.
right, correct. I
You know
understand.
what so.
But I mean, like I said, it's interesting to see, like with being a family of 4 and we recycle our paper, our cardboard. I have a spare big container that we take out when it gets full of the corrugated stuff. But just to drive them down the street with us, you know, knowing who's in the area family wise, we're at 1 trash can and 1 recycling container. And there's places where I know there's just 1 person that lives there, and they may have 2 trash cans full of stuff, or just maybe an adult, 2 adults and a small child, and they'll have 2 trash cans and no recycling. So even if we would do something like this, some type of effort to push this, and maybe it is going to be as simple as maybe 1 bigger container and just people to know about it. Might be you won't have to separate it, and you can
Well,
do
that's
everything.
that's the biggest thing, and I briefly had an opportunity to read in Missouri over the weekend. But that's the biggest problem about a single stream recycling situation is that just contamination.
Right.
1 container can spoil essentially the entire load, and a contaminated recycling truck, it ends up in a landfill.
Landfill, yeah, they just dump.
It just does.
Yep.
So I feel like we have been essentially, or the citizens have been, we've been kind of trained, I guess, maybe, I don't know if that's the correct word, but trained to clean things out and do things the right way because they know that we handle them, bale them, and try to sell it as a commodity. You know, so it's actually, it should be a little easier for us to adhere to those rules and regulations. But again, the market the margins are so thin on the recycling market that you have to get buy-in from the citizens to do it correctly. You know, so another soft benefit that you would see is if you were able to increase the tonnage from that small bin essentially to a larger one every week, which can happen with cardboard. I mean, the Amazon world, I mean, it kind of proves that, is that it actually reduces the amount that the refuse collection department has to pick up, which could prolong the need for another truck and prolong the need for another route and those type of things. So that's a tough thing to estimate. Right now, we're running around 500 tons a year is what we're picking up out of the trash stream. That's maybe 10%, whatever. But if you could increase that to 25, now you're doing pretty good. You know, you're doing pretty good on the refuse side. So that's what we're looking into, is just trying to balance all those things out to see if there is a happy medium here. But the biggest thing is citizen buy-in.
Yeah.
If you end up with grass clippings in a recycling container and that goes in back of a truck, this whole thing starts to fall apart pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, and it's costing right now. So that's important. Other ideas we looked into was maybe looking at substations, potentially, where you'd have large bins around town, downtown, maybe at the recycling center, maybe one downtown, maybe one out in on the south end of town, by Stonecrest type area, and have these single stream recycling substations where people would bring stuff to. The thing is studies show that if you don't have it right at your doorstep, you're not going to do it.
Use it.
Yeah.
So and you still have a contamination issue there. So there's really no real good solution. It's just trying to find the best
Right.
I think
palatable one.
once we do decide on something, I think we should highly educate it.
Yeah.
Highly put it out there in public, here's what, if you put this in there, this what happens. If you're interested in recycling, be more careful on how you do it.
And that's part of this discussion, was kick that off so it's constantly being talked about. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, and I think part of that, Joe, is what we talked about in the meeting was they'll receive a 96-gallon toter. Yeah. So, like even now at my house, I've got a green tote, and I went back to the Public Works office and paid $10 for a second one.
Right.
Because some weeks you have more. If you're going to give me a 96-gallon tote that sits in my garage and I can put everything in it, that's a pretty good convenience for me. Same kind of thing. So seeing that out there and everybody has that, I think that's a pretty good sell point too. Just seeing what your neighbor has and educate that way. The only issue is, once we do make the switch, the green totes are just absolutely obsolete, because they're not gonna pick those up. They're only gonna pick up the toters.
I believe they're recyclable though, so.
Those are
I
fine.
hope they are.
Put them in the bottom.
Put them in the, you just put them in there,
86, yeah.
the first load.
A couple of the other things too that we kind of just kept bringing up, like John has in here, what the upgrades to the recycle center, the cost there. There's so many other costs, a trash truck less often. What it costs us to drive the dump trucks to St. Louis to haul a load of glass down there now, or those kind of things. Those numbers aren't even figured in here, that you're going to reap those benefits in the long run. And not that,
That's
it's hard
important.
to estimate, I guess, I realize that, but there's a lot of other things that are going to come in.
That's important. I mean, you brought up a real good point, is the street department actually is the one who, transports everything to St. Louis whenever we do sell it. And like I said, it's a bid type situation. But it's running around 50,000 is what you're getting off of it a year, and you see the input cost to get that. You're running 2 trucks a day, 4 people essentially out on the streets doing the work. You also have 2 people at the recycling center doing the work, and the street department still has to fill in to haul it. And then you also have the administrative cost to put it out for bid and all those things. So, it starts really to compile. And yeah, those numbers from street department are not in these numbers.
Right.
These are very conservative numbers on that side, conservatively low, I guess. So,
I think it's a great service, and I think we should
Sure.
definitely keep it. It's just how we go about it.
exactly.
Well,
How
I
do we
guess
figure out how
My
to make it?
question is, since the meeting we had and talking about this, is there any negatives that people see other than just habit, that we have green tote tubs now, we got to go to a bigger tote? But other than that, does anybody see a negative to this, that people are going to say, are we going to recycle too much and it's end up costing us more as a city? That's the only thing I see.
Your risk really lies in is the contamination.
Yeah.
That's the risk. And like, if you can't get citizen buy-in to keep the contamination out of it, it's going to end up costing us money. Now, the beauty of it costing us money is we got a landfill right over there. So we're in a little better spot than, let's just say, a city that doesn't have its own landfill.
Right.
You know what I mean? They have to physically pay to take it somewhere then,
Yeah.
where we do not.
One pizza left in the box.
That's one diaper, it's a big deal.
Will
But we
bring
don't
it
have
back
that
and
problem
charge
now.
you? Will they bring that load back and charge you for that? If it goes to a landfill?
That's a good point. We could, if it's contaminated, they could take the load back and then they could dump it in the landfill for free. So once again, our risk is much lower.
Yeah, I don't know if that's,
That's a good idea, right? I mean, we're positioned very well with just the infrastructure that we have with the landfill. It's just,
And the other issue we talked about too was, like I said, add trash to it and do it all at one time. But like John said at the beginning, the trash is another whole different ballgame. Even if there's a company out there who'd want to do recycling and trash, you may get a benefit for the double it, but it's not going to outweigh what we can do for our own trash, our own landfill. So one thing at a time, I think, is the right approach.
this was approached as recycle first, recycle only, really.
Right.
And then just figure out what trash is. I don't know if there's ever been a study that was done about contracting out. I don't know. I just think the time now with recycling is we need to at least have the numbers, because I can't even get intelligently. Say
Well, the market's never drastically changed like it did here a year ago.
Well, again, a year ago, we were looking at
Purchasing
single
the truck
stream,
and do it
purchasing
yourself.
the truck, and it was all going to make sense. Now, in a year's time,
I mean, you literally had 2 months after that discussion, and there was no necessarily indication of it.
And to John and Tony's credit, they've looked at every one of these angles as how do we keep the level of service that we have for the residents? And so the only thing that I saw, and Nick, you pointed out, that was the only negative that it would be is if we go to it once every 2 weeks. But the idea was you got a bigger container, it's self-contained, and it's not that much of a disservice, I guess, if you will, if you're gonna take that route.
Just be me rolling it back up that night full.
Yeah, I understand. I get it.
Put a big mark on your calendar.
Yeah. We'll send out reminders.
Yeah. Does New Haven and Herman have recycling?
New Haven does, it's once a month.
Okay.
It's
How's this-
through Republic Services.
Do
Like
they have
how?
the toters then? Like-
They do. Yes, their recycling is, their trash collection is whatever, the same way as ours set up right now, where you have up to 30 gallon with an option, provided you purchase a car.
I was just looking if we could maybe share some hauling costs, back and forth. with somebody locally,
know,
as far as running down to the city. I mean, just something along that line.
Yeah, you know, if you just drive around, just kind of look, you'll see Republic I mean, like, and I'm not saying Republic is. I'm just saying there's only a handful of sorters in the area.
Right.
But you'll see their single stream dumpsters at some businesses.
Yeah.
I know.
We got them at school.
Yeah, there we go. The school. Yeah, the school. Yeah, Washington Middle School has them. So I mean, this isn't anything new. There's trucks coming in town. The thing is, it wouldn't be the same type of truck. You know, you'd have smaller trucks essentially like we have, and that would be in the proposal.
I guess what we would like out of the council tonight is that if you feel comfortable enough with at least exploring this to the next level, the committee voted to go ahead and explore the next level and put this out for bid. Then we wanted to bring you as council on board and see if you wanted us to keep exploring. So if you're comfortable with it, we would like to go ahead and do so.
I say go ahead.
I like it.
Can't hurt, can it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
No, I
Yeah,
mean,
we're
Just
not
to get
locked
more
into
information.
anything.
Get the numbers.
That'll work.
So is that a motion, Joe, seconded by
Is that a motion?
Wessels?
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
To move this on,
No, we did anything
So-
official.
to continue to look?
there we go.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you.
Perfect. A couple more things. Airport, give me an update on the airport striping project. That runway will close next Monday. I don't know the date of it, but I don't have
The
What's that?
15th? It's a,
12th, right? Yeah, the 12th. So that runway will close the 12th. That is a 7 to 9 day closure, pending weather, obviously. They're going to get in, replace some concrete spalling, and then stripe the runway. The runway has not been striped since 2004, when it was brand new newly constructed. So it's kind of starting to pose a little safety concern, and MoDOT did indicate it on our last inspection. So it's an important project to get done. The other thing is Beaker Streeterman Road. We look to have maybe a day and a half of paving yet to do. We are almost to the top on the wearing surface to Washington Heights Drive going up the hill, and then we're going to pull back down. I mean, that was a pretty substantial paving project, 4,700 tons. So it's a pretty big job. I've been getting some concerns from just the track out from paving operations. Something you can't really prevent. All you can do is kind of keep it confined in one area. MoDOT does have, though, we were able to schedule pretty well with MoDOT a paving project to overlay 47 from the bridge to Norwood. So everything you see on 47, which kind of took the brunt of all this, is actually going to be overlaid and milled out. So there is going to be a little time where that area does look a little bad, but it does tend to get better as the sun kind of beats down and some of that oil starts to break down a little bit. So that's all I have.
any questions of John? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Tim?
Good evening. I got good news.
Yeah.
We took delivery of our new heavy rescue squad last Wednesday. I signed the paperwork. We were looking at another truck, actually, while that was going on. The good news is you're getting a refund. The truck was paid for in full in February of 2018. There were some substantial construction delays in the truck due to the interest that accrued on the money. The city should be receiving somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500 back on the truck.
Good.
That is in addition to some changes we made as the truck was being constructed. So we should see that check here in the not too distant future.
Very good.
Thank you.
And we can have a free home demonstration, or here at the council, maybe?
Yeah, they mentioned that today. Once
September?
we get it loaded, the crew's working on it right now. We have 30 days to get this truck put into service, and the other one is traded in. So that truck has already been spoken for. It's going to South Carolina, I believe. And so once the new one's in service,
Maybe in September sometime?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Be good to have it here so that we could see it.
absolutely. No,
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Good evening, council. Just a quick update from the street department. Pretty much, we're doing a lot of fair prep operations, parade issues. We are still mosquito fogging. We'll be out every morning in the fairground area. We will be mowing throughout the town. We do have a sweeper class coming up in September. We got a DNR class coming up in September. And then shortly after the fair is over, we're also going to start painting all the school zones. I know you've seen the paint truck out doing stop bars in the area, but we'll start on the school zones before school gets started. And we got a handful of concrete and asphalt jobs to do, including the parking lot that's finally come out from under the flood, so.
Is that really bad down there? I've seen it looks bad.
As it recedes, it looks like the same area that washed out last time that we patched, so we'll see. We're gonna run down there tonight, might have to throw some cones on it just to be safe.
It's been underwater a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions of Tony? Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Anyone else? We do have an executive session.
Yeah, we can do an executive session between the two.
Hey, Chief, can I ask a couple questions, please? Or just... In the past, whenever we get phone calls, or I do, we've always been told to call Officer Grissom. And now I think we've been told to go through you.
Yes.
And that's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. I've sent a couple emails and phone calls, and I just would like to get some feedback if that's possible.
I can tell you the one on Highway A, we've dealt with that one before. He has historic plates on the vehicle. We make them start them. They start. So that makes them not derelict. We're checking again. And he does let his weeds grow out a little bit, but always cuts him when he's reminded. I've talked with John about the condition of his house and some other houses in the city and the direction we might go to getting some of those fixed up, but that's where we're at with that one.
That's fine. Again, I want to pass on, and I want to make sure I'm passing on the right spot, and it's getting...
Waiting to get a response so I can respond to you and say, this is what we
Okay.
got.
And then what about the parking issue in front of the Y for the, just so everyone knows, I got a call from someone, took pictures whenever they dropped the kid, or picked the kids up from the daycare, whatever, summer daycare. They park on Grand Avenue in front of the Y. Kids run around the cars, and you can't make two lanes next to it. So people have seen kids running out in between cars. You know, hey, can we make them go to the ballpark, down to the ballpark and make the circle to pick their kids up there? I don't know if it's a traffic issue, if it's a police issue, or if that's a YMCA.
We've actually moved that parking zone down further, but I don't think that helps what you're talking about. So it's something we need to see if the Y can convince the parents to pick up on the lot elsewhere.
I mean, at that 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon thing, we could use the Lakeview softball ball field parking lots to make their circle and pick kids up. Wouldn't be any further away, just to keep them off of Grand Avenue on pickup, because it's definitely an accident waiting to happen, so. That's what I have, thank you.
So Chief, so cars left on the road, they don't have to be licensed?
If they do, but this one has historic plates.
Okay,
That gives them a license.
yeah. I'd called on one,
But we always make sure they still have to run.
yeah. But there was no plates, and the neighbor claims it's been there for a year and a half with no plates, so.
We've issued a bunch of notices, so you'd have to tell me, I'd have to get back with you on which one that
Yeah,
is.
all right.
We just want to be able, people are going to call me 3 times
Oh, yeah.
and tell me, hey, what'd you find out?
And some of them they look derelict, but they're perfectly all right.
Right, so just,
I can understand him saying that doesn't look right, but
Right.
it's running and licensed. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, the council comments, do we have anything?
Go ahead.
Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, or real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO. Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtzmeyer.
Aye.
Obermark.
Aye.
Patke.
yes.
Pettit.
Yes.
Sullentrop.
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye.